Hi, hello, and welcome, or welcome back, I suppose. Today, like last week, is going to be a pretty chill, or last week, whatever, I don't know when this is coming out, probably next week. You'll probably be seeing this at about the same time next week. So, point is, today's going to be another pretty chill video. I said that at the end of my last one. I just want to do I just want to read. Do some simple reviews. Next video is probably going to be a little more in depth, just because, I'm doing that review for a bit more. It's not just like, I'm reading because these are books that I want to read. They are books I want to I'm rambling. Today, we're going to be looking at some manga. We're going to be looking at some graphic novels. I just want to have a good time. A lot of these are first volumes in series that I would like to read, and I think from now on, I've read some more B-stars, I'm just not going to be reviewing them anymore. I think that if I'm going to be reviewing manga or graphic novels, anything like that are in a series, I'm probably just going to review the first one, say whether or not I'm interested in reading the rest. Unless I suddenly get to one where I'm like, okay, books 1 and 2 in this series were really good, but what the fuck is happening in book 3? Then I might go back and say that sort of thing. But unless something tickles my pickle and I'm like, hey, wonder what's going on later down the line, then I'm probably gonna do that. I mean, one thing I have coming up, I'm gonna be reviewing the first part, because it's a multi-part series. But the first part only has 3 books, whereas the rest have a lot more. So I'm probably just going to do that. But let's just get into what we're talking about today. I don't know where I'm going to actually. I'll just move these over a bit and I think I can. Yeah, they'll fit there. So, first up is the summer. Is it the summer Hikaru died? Yeah, the summer Hikaru died, which I think is a kind of. I think it's a thriller or a horror manga. I know it's a weird one. Well, I know it's a horror, but I don't know in what sense. I'll read the blurb. It's one that I'd seen a couple of times when I've been in bookshops, and then gone, I'll get this at some point, or I'll order it in from the library at some point, and then I just haven't. And then recently I was just like, no, I actually do really want to read this. And I think I saw weird that I'm mentioning this 2 videos in a row, but I saw Julia from Drawfee bring it up, and I was like, no, you know what, I have been meaning to read that. So it has Hikaru's face, it has Hikaru's voice, it even has Hikaru's memories. But whatever came down from the mountains 6 months ago isn't Yoshiki's best friend. Whatever it is, it's dangerous, carrying on at school and hanging out as if nothing has changed, as if Hikaru isn't gone. Would be crazy, but when it looks so very like Hikaru and acts so very like Hikaru. I love weird shit. You've just watched me dive into some Ito stuff. I already said that I'm going to be reading more. Next week includes some weird shit. One of them is weird, the rest are fun. Well, no, we have one weird, 2 fun adventure type stuff, and 1 where I'm not actually sure, I just know it's fantasy. Anyway, next, Romantic Killer. It's something that just the name sounds really familiar to me, and I think it's been adapted. Now, while I am not an anime person, just because I'm very bad at focusing. So obviously watching stuff with subs can be a little bit difficult, and I hate dubs most of the time. Sometimes it's good. One of the few things that I have watched is My Neighbor Totoro and Bakano. 2 completely different things, but they both have really good dubs. A lot of people rave about the Bakano dub because it has voice actors who do not just sound like they're doing this really weird, cheesy, I am talking like this all of the time. There's no tone intonation, and I always sound like I'm Ash from Pokemon, despite the fact that I'm a 37-year-old man. I'm not into that. And not like, obviously, not everything is like that, but there is a weird thing. Oh my god. Sorry, I'm going on side tangents, but this is me. I watched Battle Royale years ago. I was a bit too young to watch it, not because of the violence. I was old enough to watch it then, but I think I was just like not there for watching it yet. I didn't get into it properly. I really enjoyed it, but I didn't get into it properly. But I watched the original version with subtitles. Oh my god, I've just seen a clip from the dub. Fuck me. The scene where they're all in the classroom before they go out with Takeshi from Takeshi's Castle, which I only found out recently, but they play that video with the woman. Oh, that's where that voice came from, unfortunately. But yeah, Romantic Killer, I think it's been adapted into an anime, and like I said, I don't watch, but I do exist in a lot of fandom spaces where anime is a big crossover. So like, I talk to a lot of people who are really into the Yakuza game series. They're obviously also going to be into anime. I'm just a manga person. And weirdly, actually, also being in wrestling spaces, people love anime there as well. I think it's just like a nerdy thing. But yeah, it looked familiar to me, and it also sounded interesting. So I thought I'd pick it up. High schooler Anzu Hoshino has a great life. Every day she plays video games, pigs out on snacks, and pets her beloved cat. But this blissful existence is turned into a confusing mess when a magical creature transports her into an altered reality, bereft of her favourite things. Now she's stuck with hot guys instead. How can she possibly survive such an awful world? Anzu must play along in this altered reality before she can return to her normal life. So she begrudgingly makes friends with Tsukasa Kazuki. I'm reading this on the fly. I do not have a Tsukasa Kazuki. He unfortunately happens to be one of the hottest and most popular guys in school. And what's worse, she realises that he might not even be that bad of a person. Listen, does that sound cheesy? Yes. But isekai is often fun, and it just sounds a bit ridiculous, honestly. I have a real range of stuff going on here. There is no coherent theme. It's just, this is stuff that I wanted to read. Oh, I haven't said who any of this is by. There's something Hikaru Died is by Mokumokuren, I assume? Yeah. I was trying to see if that wasn't the publisher. I'm not getting myself in trouble. Do we have a translator in here? Not at the front. It's probably like you're reading this the wrong way around. The translation for that is by Ajani Aloy. Always good to talk about. Romantic Killer is by Wataru Momose, I think. And yeah, I know that's the last page. Oh, wonderful. Sorry. Look at him. A lot of manga have it at the back where it's like you're reading this the wrong way around, because obviously the translated stuff, because obviously a lot of Westerners are just going to like read it back to front, which makes sense. But yeah, the translation and adaptation for Romantic Killer is by Adrienne Beck. Next, Volume 1 of Chainsaw Man. Something that I have generally heard about. I know there was an adaptation, which is beloved. I also have a friend who is obsessed with this and keeps telling me to read it. But every time I've been to the library recently, there have been... I was like, oh cool, Chainsaw Man is here, which means I can probably get it at some point. But it's always been random volumes. It's like 2, 7, 11, whatever. But finally, not even in the manga section, it had been like... somebody had clearly just put it down on the shelf. If you hadn't borrowed it, it's mine. I'm taking it. Volume 1, finally. So yeah, Chainsaw Man is by Tatsuki Fujimoto. And let me just check something. Let's hope I don't get spoiled. That looks like spoiler territory. This one's at the beginning, and the translation for this is by Amanda Henley, and the little blurb on the back. Denji's a poor young man who'll do anything for money, even hunting down devils with his pet devil Pochita. He's a simple man with simple dreams, drowning under a mountain of debt, but his sad life gets turned upside down when he's betrayed by someone he trusts. Now with the power of a devil inside him, Denji's become a whole new man. Chainsaw Man. It also looks sick as fuck. Like, look at that. I sometimes aesthetics are important, and that's cool as fuck. Because a lot of the stuff that I read, which isn't Junji Ito, is generally softer visually. Like, I mean, you know how much I've been raving about Beastars, and Power Itagaki stuff is generally very soft. Even Drip Drip is soft. Onto the graphic novels. Orcs by Larsen, which I think is an adaptation from a regular novel, like prose. Because I'm pretty sure my dad had this. Probably still does. But it looks familiar. Like, with the exclamation mark as well, I'm pretty sure that is also a novel. The Orcs are here and they're coming for you. After being exiled from their tribe for a crime they definitely committed, Bog and his motley crew of adventurers are on the hunt for a suitable treasure to win their way back in. But it's not easy out there in the wide known world when everyone wants to eat you or shoot you, especially not when some threats arise straight out of legend. Join cartoonist Christine Larsen, Adventure Time by night, for misadventure and mayhem as Bog, Zepp, Pez, Gur and Utsu fight their way through parts unknown in this irreverent, fun-filled saga. Maybe I'm wrong then. Is there something else called Orcs with an exclamation mark like that? What I will do is in editing, I will probably put something in here, just being like, oh, here, by the way, this is what I was thinking of. And I've probably already done that, so. Finally, I know, we've got a big bunch today. I think we've got 5 books. It's probably too many for one video, but like I said, this is not going to be like a deep dive into all of them unless I get sidetracked, and then this whole intro will be scrapped and I'll go, oh, actually, I decided to just go really hard into this one book. But finally, we have Vern, the Custodian of the Universe by Tyrell. Is it Waters or Waters? Waiters. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on because they reflect really badly. So Tyrell Waiters, yeah. There we go. Burnt out and exhausted, Vern decides to return to his family in Florida to rest and start over. Landing yet another dead-end job as a custodian at the local quasar science facility, he finds himself resigned to more long hours of boring work. But as he grabs his keycard, mop and bucket, he quickly realises that he's about to embark on something pretty weird. Not a lot of jobs make you clean up galactic ooze and space-time anomalies after all. Things aren't what they seem at Quasar, and when Vern accidentally plugs in a mysterious machine and finds himself facing the destruction of the entire multiverse and the mother of all messes to clean up, he is faced with the greatest, most important question of all. What's the point? So, yeah, a big range there. We have space adventure, fantasy adventure, chainsaw men, isekai romantic nonsense, and horror in some strange way, which I still don't understand. So, all of the manga stuff are volume 1 of series. If I do end up really enjoying them, I will not be reviewing the rest, just because it's nice to be able to, like, read stuff for myself as well. And these two are just standalone graphic novels, so that's it. I mean, unless there are more, but again, it would be the same thing. If I found out there are sequels, I'm just going to read them for myself. But yeah, oh my god, I've been talking for 15 minutes. Well, you're here for a good time and a long time. I should leave. Get on with the... roll the fucking intro. Okay, Apologies for the audio dip because I'm just using my phone's microphone. But I've tried like a bunch of times to do a basic sketch, like to lay this down. And when I'm working physically, I like to show the whole process because I do work differently when I'm doing physical stuff versus when I'm doing digital stuff. I tend to do like messy sketch, clean sketch, go over things, lines. It's a different process. It takes a lot longer usually doing the basic stuff up to what you see when I do speed draws. But nothing is going right for me. So I'm going to try and just get a sketch down off camera. And then you will see me going from there. And if this doesn't go well, I will figure something else out. I will do something digitally or something like that. I'll do a different thing because I just prefer doing physical art at the minute. But yeah, this just isn't working out for me. I'm having a big stress about it. So I've tried like 3-4 different angles or something. I keep going off on it. It's just not I just can't figure it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and sketch something down, and once I do have a good sketch, you will see me probably from the point of me doing the marker stuff and everything like that. But yeah, sorry I couldn't show my full process today, but I think just not having a camera on me where I can spend a long time doing it rather than I do find myself rushing a little bit when I'm on camera, mostly because my phone gets hot and I still don't have a stand yet. Maybe next week I'll have a stand and I'll think about it less, but at this point, yeah, you're gonna see it when I already have a sketch. I'll ramble for 2 minutes now. Anyway, enjoy seeing me from a later point in time. Have fun. Alright, that intro was long enough, so some spoilers ahead, and let's just get right on into it with Vern, the Custodian of the Universe by Tyrell Waiters. Immediate thought with this book was that it has lovely paper. While that isn't necessarily something super important to review, it did set me up to have a good experience with it. Graphic novels and comics are often printed with that like shiny magazine type paper, especially when they're in colour, but matte is always preferable to me. And I do think that Waiter's style is really complemented by it, to be honest. It's clear that he's a graphic designer as much as he is an illustrator. Everything is so cohesive. It's also just a good like tactile experience. It feels nice on the hands and there's no dealing with reflection off the page. His stuff looks like screen printing, and from when I've been on his website, we'll get to that later, but when I've been on his website, it looks like he does do some screen printing. I don't know if that's how any of this was done, but it looks like it at the very least. Now, this book follows Vern. He's just lost his job and has to move back home to his mother and grandmother, the latter of which helps him find a new place of work. He ends up as a custodian at Quasar, a science facility researching space travel and interdimensional travel. Custodian basically means that he's a cleaner, but he ends up having to clean up a much bigger mess than strange space goop when he reconnects a machine that causes shockwaves through the multiverse. It's a story that feels modern without feeling like you're being told that it's a modern story. Like, you've not got somebody trying to, like when people who are older try and sound younger, sometimes stuff that tries to feel too modern, it feels icky. Like, it feels like something's being rammed down your throat. Honestly, like, this book looks at the economic climate of the world, climate change, and like feeling significant in a world where it's so easy to feel small. There's a fantastic balance of that, like uplifting and heartbreaking with this book. And sometimes when books are trying to do that, it can feel a lot. Going on to that balance of uplifting and heartbreaking, it seems that in the early stages we're seeing his grandmother suffering from dementia or something akin to it, but as we go through, it starts buzzing in my head that like, oh, Grandpa isn't dead, she is in her sound mind, and he's probably just not in our universe anymore. And I won't fully spoil that because while I was right, I didn't see the full reveal coming. And I think it's very beautiful. And when I say it feels like we don't have stuff like rammed down our throat, I just mean that everything is laid out as it is. Nothing is yelling at you like, look, 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 look. This is about XYZ issue. Everything is very plainly laid out as it needs to be. I think overt references to current issues are all well and good, but sometimes it does feel like I'm exhausted by it in a short space of time. And we don't get that here. There's a running message of fixing what we have rather than just trying to leave it behind and start elsewhere. That's a big talk in climate change spaces where it's like, sure, we can think about going to another place, but what about the place we already exist in? Our planet is not disposable, but it's so often treated like it is. And that message is laid out in this book, but it doesn't feel like it's being shouted at you. And obviously there's that idea of showing rather than telling, and there is a nice balance of that here, but it doesn't feel like I'm being told. It doesn't feel like I'm being politicized at. Does that make sense? And don't get me wrong, overtly political stuff is fine, but it's hard to explain. I just really like the way that the messages are laid out in the book. But yeah, the story really encapsulated something for me that just but I'll be totally honest, yes, I was incredibly engrossed by the story. I think it is fantastic, but almost all of my notes were in relation to the art itself. Waiters is such a phenomenal artist. Every page is simply bloody gorgeous. I have a few favourites, of course, but this is not just a graphic novel, but a display of Waiter's sheer talent as an artist. The colours, the design, the characters, messing with perspective, all of it. It's bloody gorgeous. I would buy prints of so many pages from this. And I looked it up, and you can get Vern-related trinkets from his shop. And I was like, let's go, this is fantastic. But they don't ship to the UK. Which I get it. I imagine that it is an independent shop run out of the US, so it would be incredibly expensive to do so. But I was just like, I wanted to get the little patch and I wanted to get the stickers, but I couldn't, and I was so upset. But I still recommend that you go and read this book. Like, I can't recommend it enough, and I hope that Waiters publishes more in the future, because I'll be all over that in a flash. It's brilliant. It's just fantastic. Next up, we have Orcs by Christine Larsen. Quick callback to the intro where I was trying to figure out if this was an adaptation of a pre-existing novel. It's not. So Orcs with the exclamation mark is this graphic novel and the rest of the series by Christine Larsen. Orcs without the exclamation mark is a trilogy of books by Stan Nichols, all in one big volume. It's basically the same name, but it is completely different vibes from what I'm gathering. This is a daft romp, a silly comedy adventure, but I believe Nichols' book is more like high fantasy with some adventure elements in it. But like I say, this is a daft romp, and it was great fun. Is it about to become one of my favourite books of all time or anything like that? No, that's unlikely, but it doesn't mean that I didn't thoroughly enjoy myself. This book follows a band of orcs who end up getting kicked from their tribe after causing one too many problems, and we watch them on their quest to earn their way back to the homestead. And it's sort of interspersed with the stories of legend about, oh my god, why can't I remember? Just give me 1 second. Yeah, it's interspersed with these like legendary stories of Drod, who is an orc of legend, and this story gets told. They're usually told like children's stories to the children of this tribe, but it's very clear that the woman who's telling them has been telling them for a long time, and she's like a medicine woman, and she also is like a witch kind of thing. I suppose that is technically what a witch is. Anyway, those are interspersed and they're a lot of fun, and the quest is seemingly linked to the stories that are being told. This book is silly and it's funny. I genuinely did crack up laughing a couple of times. Thankfully I was reading at home, so that's not embarrassing, because I would be kind of awkward if I'm just like sat in the library laughing out loud. But the siren getting bonked by the hilt of a sword cracked me up. It's silly. That's not as like nasty as it sounds. Drod throws a sword at her and she just gets bonked by it's very cartoonish. Though I think the battle squirrels might have been my favourite moment. That might be my favourite part of the whole book. I thought that was daft and wonderful. It's kind of like taking the scene from Willy Wonka and just making... Actually, it's a lot like that. I can't remember how that's handled in the Gene Wilder version, but the Johnny Depp version, where they're all like honour, very much like that. My least favourite part would probably be the persistent presence of spiders. I can only assume that Larsen is a fan of spiders, because, like, well, partly because there's so bloody many of them, like, at once. At once, it's like a big one with little ones on her back, like the babies. But it's mostly because, like, the big one in particular is drawn clearly very lovingly. I could not bring myself to spend that long drawing a spider. Look at the piece I did for my Cirque du Freak speed draw. Like, I just did glowing eyes. I am not looking at those little bastards long enough to draw them that well. I still enjoyed the book on the whole, and this is just like a personal thing. It does not affect my... I know it would for some people, positively or negatively. I know some people, if they find out there's a presence of spiders, they just can't read it at all. And I know some people who would love this book even more because of their presence. Her art as well is absolutely wonderful. The action shots are so dynamic and fun. Think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles kind of action, where it's hard hitting but still suitable for all readers. I believe Larsen worked on Adventure Time, and it shows, and I also got some Lumberjane kind of vibes as well, just with more sort of active, I say vicious, not in like a bloody gory nasty way, just like physically vicious kind of way. I think if you enjoy either of those, you will enjoy this too. Actually, I think even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think if you enjoy any of those, this will be a book for you. It's like, I don't know if I will be actively seeking out more from the series, as, spoiler alert, I will be doing with most of the rest of the books I'm talking about today. But like, if I saw volume 2 at the library, then I would pick it up. It's just that I'm not likely to run to reserve it. It's a fun, simple read. It's a good little, like, chill out time. You know what I mean? But next, we are now moving on to the manga side of this little collection. Everything else will be manga. And first in that side of things, we have Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto, translated by Amanda Haley. Here's the thing. I genuinely had no idea what this was actually about going in. I'd seen characters from it before, and that's kind of it. Like, I knew the lead character was called Denji. I knew that his little... Oh, I thought it was like a dog. I didn't really know. But like, I knew of Pochita before. And I love him so much. He's just a little baby. I nearly didn't forgive my friend for telling me to read this. But thankfully, it was just like the crux of the plot coming together. And I'm like, you can suffer for... I'm not spoiling that. Suffer for yourself. But I was like, no. No. But it's fine. It's all good. We're good. But... this book, like I say, follows Denji, a poor teenager doing anything he can to pay off his late father's enormous debt, usually doing so by killing devils for the Yakuza, and I mean that literally. They are just outright devil creatures. After one hunting trip goes wrong, however, he ends up with the power of a devil inside of him, and he becomes the eponymous Chainsaw Man, and ending up being taken in by a devil hunting agency. Specifically ends up being one of the women there's pet. We'll get to that. The creature design is so fucking good in this. Such a range of... What, my fucking Jonathan Ross? Such a range of weird little freaky beasts. There's even like a little lily type creature. Like, here she is, seeing her kin. We love a lily type creature. Weird bats and that kind of freaky little demon. That's my cat. That's my cat right there. The action as well, so nasty, and I mean that as a compliment 100%. It's like scratchy, rough inking style that's just, oh, it hits so hard. Like, every time it was just like, that's that good shit right there. I know that there's an anime adaptation, and I'd be really interested to see how that sort of thing is translated, because it's so dynamic and has that looks rough but is clearly deliberate look to it, and it scratches an itch in my brain. But I wonder how you would take that like ink heavy style into something that is for the screen rather than for books. Obviously, there's the addition of colour as part of that, and the rendering style likely is different. So I would be curious to see how that's translated. And I did assume that there would be some graphic action going into this. Like, to be fair, it's called Chainsaw Man, but I had no idea that it's also genuinely daft and funny. To rob a joke from my friend, if this was, you know, the hero's journey, Denji's call to action is the want to touch a fucking titty. And I think need is actually more accurate, to be fair, but it killed me. There's a damn chapter called A Way to Touch Some Boobs, for fuck's sake. Brilliant. And there's like a really nice balance between the funny stuff and the more nasty and serious stuff. And the characters are also wonderful. Seeing the way Makima talks to Denji does tell me a lot about the people that have told me to read this. Like I said, she calls Denji her pet and tells him to bark. I know the people that you are. The person that's told me to read this in particular, there's been a couple, but the one in particular, I know what you are. Nasty ass. But I love this for you. However, I do think Power is my favourite. Like, so far at least. I've only read book 1. But she's a bit scrungly. She loves cats. And doesn't know how to sit still. Big mood. Like, she's got zoomies. It's so funny. And immediately I saw her and Denji's dynamic for what it is. Which is wretched siblings. I'm always here for a found family trope where the family in question is just a bunch of siblings who bicker with one another like the petty little beasts that they are. And also, Power has a giant fuck-off hammer. I don't know what else to say about that. I shouldn't have to say anything else about that, frankly. That's sick as hell. I love that. She's great. And, like, I've already requested up to volume 5. I won't be reviewing the rest, like I said in the intro. I like to think of these reviews as, like, would I want to venture into the rest of the series, or would I want to read more from this author, as with Tyrell Waiters. But, like, and in the case of this one, yes, I absolutely would. It's why I'm, like, it's why I've requested the next 4 volumes. I think 3 of them have already come in. They must have already been at the library, because I, like, requested them, and then later that day they were already there, which means I probably could have just gone to the library to get them and not had to pay, but that's fine. I don't mind. It keeps the libraries going, it funds them, whatever. But this is why I'm not reviewing B-Stars anymore. People are just less likely to really care for reviews about stuff later down the line. Like, yeah, people might want to see the review for volume 1 to see if the rest of the series would be something that's, like, interesting. But if I'm reviewing 2, 3, 4, 5, it's going to just start seeing a drop-off. People don't really care about that. And, like, with B-Stars, I think the last one I reviewed was 3. No, I've reviewed the first 2. And then I think I decided not to do 3. Because nobody, like, I think one person watched my review for B-Stars 2. So yeah. Yeah, I read 3, not for review. And I've done the same with 4, and 5 is already requested and on the way. So yeah, I am still really enjoying that series, but I just don't see the need to review it anymore. And I actually am enjoying being able to read some books not for review anymore, because sometimes it's just like, it's a different experience reading something for review as it is just reading it for myself. Most of the books I do that with are books that I've already read, but some of them is just like short stuff or stuff that I'm like, yeah, maybe I could review it, but I like this being for me. Anyway, I am very much hooked on this, and I look forward to the rest of the series. But now we're in for a complete tone shift as we move on to Romantic Killer by Wataru Momose. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, my apologies. I'm just sort of reading this as I go. I probably should have looked it up, but I didn't. And this was translated by Adrienne Beck. Going into this, I thought I was headed into a kind of schlocky shoujo romance with some kind of isekai element to it. It kind of has an isekai element to it, but also not in the way that I expected. It's not like a Inuyasha where you're completely dumped into a separate world. It's just like, a kind of version of that, where it's just like parallel to the one that you're in, but things are a bit different. And it's definitely a shoujo romance, but it's also deeply self-aware of what it is, and like it isn't quite a parody, but it has a lot of elements of that. We follow Anzu. She's a gamer who has way more interest in the men in her games than any of the boys in her school. She'd rather like play her games, eat chocolate, hang out with a cat. But that is until a little imp comes into her life and flips it upside down, taking away all of her favourite things so she can focus on getting herself a man. Because, let me get the quote. I hate resorting to such heavy-handed methods, I really do. But see, it's Japan's declining birth rate. It's become an issue, even in Magic Land. So yes. This is ridiculous. Like I say, it's so fun. It's incredibly self-aware, using the tropes often found in the genre with a big wink at the camera type of energy. The little fella who sets this all up makes a bunch of terrible shit happen to make Anzu and the initial interest, Kazuki, get a lot closer. It's the sort of thing you often see in romance anyway, but here that self-awareness makes it really fun. There's this level of chaos that's so silly, mostly caused by that little fella. I love the way, by the way, he causes an entire storm to happen outside to the point where the door gets broken, so Kazuki can't leave and they have to spend the night together. Not like that, but like they spend the night together in the house. I mean, he's trying to make that happen, but it doesn't. And like he causes an entire flood at Kazuki's house, so he simply has to stay with Anzu. It's so daft. And I love the way that he and Anzu interact with each other, and there's just something about the way that he's drawn compared to everything else. It's just like, oh, it's great. There's also a few times where Anzu gets drawn like this. Every single time it gets me in a fit of giggles. It's so good. There's something that just like cracks me with it. And like the regular art throughout is so nice as well. It's pretty expected. It's like a pretty expected style for the genre, but it's pleasing and it's colourful. And there are a couple of panels between chapters that made me go, aw, because they're genuinely all like just super cute. Even the buff cat. And like, I still got the little fuzzies I'd usually get from a romance or a rom-com. It still hit those beats that spark joy for me. Also, while I'm thinking about it, there are a couple of appearances from legally distinct game characters. The one that comes to mind is Smoke instead of Metal Gear Solid Snake. I think that's my favourite. Sometimes you need a daft romance to get you through the day, and this is exactly what I needed. It's cute, it's silly, and I've already reserved Volume 2. I don't know if there have been any more after 2, because 2 came out last year, and at the very least the English translation did. But I'm looking forward to continuing on with this silliness nonetheless, because it's just a great time. It's not what I expected. I thought it would be a bit like, oh god, what am I reading? But I actually had a really good time with it. I thought it would be a little bit less self-aware, and I thought it would be a bit, like I said, just a bit schlocky, and maybe something to laugh at a little bit, but I laughed with it instead, which is great. But back with another gear change for our last book, though I suppose there are some romantic elements here too, as last up we have The Summer Hikaru Died by Mokumokuren. I think I said that right. Every time I try and say that out loud, my brain turns off for a second, because it's just like, I don't know. But this one is translated by Ajani Aloya. I've never seen that name before, so I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, I knew to expect weird. I just had no idea what direction that would take. I thought it would be we see signs of something over time, that something is wrong type of thing, but no. This book follows Yoshiki as we see him right after his friend Hikaru comes back after going missing for a short while in the mountains. Except this isn't Hikaru. Something else has come back down from the mountain. It looks exactly like him. It has his memories, but it's not quite right. It's not quite him. And like I say, we learn that he is wrong from, like, right from the off, which surprised me, but I really liked that. Rather than having that mystery element, we're dealing with the aftermath of Yoshiki trying to remain friends with this entity that isn't quite his longtime friend. And I say friend, but fellas, have you ever been so in love with someone that you basically fuck off into the mountains and get taken over by a weird spirit entity? And listen, while him going into the mountains is seemingly a family tradition if they aren't married by a certain age, it would appear that the reason he isn't married to someone is that Hikaru is having deep feelings for Yoshiki. I just love seeing queer romance being so normal. The horror stuff is not normal. This book is not a normal romance book by any means. But to be clear, I just mean that it's like Hikaru has some feelings for someone, and that someone happens to be a boy, and he happens to be a boy. You'll love to see it. It's not like, when I say it's normal queer romance, like, it's not on a shelf saying queer romance. Like, this is just, I didn't know that, but that's what this was going in, and I just like, it's just romance. It just happens to be two boys. I mean, like, romance, but like, yeah. But I'm useless without you, Yoshiki, because you're my first. Ugh, I just don't know what's really my feelings or the entities, at this point. This is so hard. What am I supposed to do? I know it ain't right, but I still like you, and I can't stop my feelings. So much of that. Like, seeing what he's going through, just like, oh, it got me. Like, because there was a reference to it earlier on, and I was like, is that, or am I just overthinking it? But that scene really put things into perspective. And I just like, it warmed my heart, even though that is a really weird scene. There are a couple of really weird scenes. Like, the horror itself is weird stuff, and it's unsettling, but there's nothing graphic in a Junji Ito kind of way, which, given I've just read a bunch of his stuff, I was, like, half expecting. There is some visual weirdness, but most of it isn't graphic and comes from that psychological element of, this is not Hikaru, but it's also not Hikaru. It's fantastic. I've reserved volume 2, I think. If I haven't, I'll sort that out soon enough. I didn't make a huge amount of notes on this compared to the other books in this little haul, which is weird, because, like, I was so damn engrossed in it, but nonetheless, I need to see how the story goes. It's just like, I don't know what to expect from this, and yet I'm obsessed. I'm already in love. Like, it's so weird. But I think that about wraps things up for this video. I hope you enjoyed your stay here today. I can 100% recommend everything I've read for this video. There's something for everyone here, I think. Next time I'm gracing your airwaves, I'm doing an indie special. Mostly stuff I found at Comic-Cons, and one book from a friend of mine. I reviewed his book Seraphine's Ghost, I think, either last year or the year before. Either way, this one is, as far as I'm aware, set in the same universe, but it's not smut in the way that the last one was. I think that's right. I mean, I'll soon find out, or he'll get a message from him or a comment being like, yeah, no, whatever, confirmation, if he watches this far. Hello, if you are. But give me your graphic novel and manga recommendations, and I'll add them to my list I'll get to it at some point, but oh my god, why do I have so much to read? And why are there still library reservations coming in? There's so much! Obviously, the answer is that I keep fucking reserving things, but I have been on a big manga and graphic. I mean, that's going to be ending soon-ish. Like, next week it's a mix. 3 of them from the Comic-Cons are comics. One of them, the one by Josh, being regular prose. And then for a bit, like quite a bit, I have... Actually, I say quite a bit. That's not true. It's like 2 books, and then I'm back on graphic novels. And that's unless I get more Junji Ito through, because I might do that soon for like Halloween purposes, because I have 2 here. I think I have a couple more coming in, but yeah, I have an order on things, but like I'm happy to switch that up a little bit. But anyway, feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, feel free to put your notifications on, and all the other cringe shit I'm supposed to ask you to do. But most importantly, I hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful night, a wonderful whenever you are watching. Wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take good care of yourself. Right.